Just stay back. Ren scrambled away, kicking loose soil over the edge of the ravine. Below, half buried in the red mud and twisted wreckage of some small atmospheric craft he didn't recognize, was her. And the thing, she hissed, a sound like escaping steam mixed with grinding crystals, clutching the glowing ovoid tighter against her chest. She wasn't human, not even close. Tall, impossibly slender, with skin that seemed to shift between deep indigo and oil-slick black, patterned with lines of soft, bioluminescent turquoise that pulsed faintly. Fins, delicate and semi-translucent, flared along her forearms and calves, shimmering wetly even in the dry air. A tail, long and segmented like an insect, but scaled like a reptile, twitched behind her, flicking mud. Her eyes were huge, solid silver, reflecting the harsh sunlight without pupils. And she was hurt. Dark, viscous fluid oozed from a gash on her side, staining the mud in her strange, wrap-like clothing. But her focus wasn't on the wound. It was entirely on the egg, football-sized, radiating a gentle warmth he could feel even from 10 feet away, its shell swirling with patterns of light that echoed hers. Ren swallowed, his hand hovering near the battered pulse pistol holstered on his thigh. He was just a moisture farmer, technically a scavenger when the hydrocoils went bust, scraping by on this dusty rockball at the edge of regulated space. He didn't need this kind of trouble. Look, I'm not gonna hurt you or it. He gestured vaguely at the glowing egg. You're bleeding, badly. She tilted her head, the silver eyes tracking his movement. The turquoise lines on her skin brightened for a moment. No reply, just that unnerving crystalline hiss. The crash must have happened overnight. The wreckage was still smoking faintly. Probably drew the attention of worse things than him already. Skitterhawks may be worse. Okay, look. Ren took a tentative step closer, hands raised, palms out. Ship's busted, you're hurt. That thing needs shelter, maybe. He pointed towards the low ridge where his habdome sat, a dusty blister on the landscape. Safe place. She shifted, pulling the egg closer, and winced, a sharp intake of breath that sounded almost painful. The turquoise lights flickered erratically. Her tail thumped against the metal debris. He didn't know her species, her language, anything, but pain was universal, and that egg, it pulsed with a soft, rhythmic light, a steady beat like a heart. It felt important. Damn it, he sighed, scrubbing a hand over his dusty face. Right, okay, stupid idea incoming. He lowered his hand slowly. I'm Ren. Can you stand? He mimed, getting up. She watched him, those silver eyes unnervingly intelligent. Then slowly, using the wreckage for support, she pushed herself upright. She was taller than him by a head, even slightly hunched. The movement pulled at her wound, and the turquoise lights dimmed, her hiss turning into a low groan. The egg's light intensified, pulsing faster. Ren felt a weird thrumming sensation in his own chest, mirroring the egg's rhythm, like distant bass notes. What the hell? He shook his head, pushing the feeling away. All right, lean on me. If you want to. He edged closer, offering an arm, trying very hard not to stare at the shifting patterns on her skin or the way the light seemed to ripple just beneath the surface. She hesitated, her gaze flicking between him, the egg, and the open expanse of the dangerous plains. Then, with a sudden, decisive movement, she shifted the egg into one arm and leaned heavily against him with the other. Her touch was startling. Cool, smooth skin, but beneath it, a surprising heat radiated out, and where her fingers pressed against his arm, tiny sparks of turquoise light bloomed on his skin before fading. He flinched. Whoa, what was that? She just grunted, pressing closer, her weight almost making him buckle. The rhythmic thrumming in his chest intensified, syncing perfectly with the egg's steady pulse. He grit his teeth. Okay. One step at a time, towards the dome, slowly. This was already the weirdest, most dangerous, and possibly stupidest thing he'd ever done. And his week had just started. Bringing her back to the dome was a slow, agonizing process. Every few steps she'd pause, breath catching, the lights on her skin flickering like a faulty connection. Ren gritted his teeth, half supporting her weight, acutely aware of her cool skin against his dusty tunic, the strange scent emanating from her, something like ozone, rain, and exotic spice, and the constant, low thrumming that seemed to resonate from the egg through her and into him. It wasn't just auditory, it was a physical vibration in his bones, unsettling and persistent. He kept glancing at the egg nestled securely in her arm. Its glow was a soft, constant presence, the swirling patterns mesmerizing. It felt alive, aware. He pushed the thought away. It was just some alien biology he didn't understand. Probably. Inside the habdome, the air was blessedly cool, filtered, and recycled. It was cramped, cluttered with salvaged tech, hydroponic trays, and the general detritus of a solitary life. He guided her towards the worn synth-leather couch, the only piece of furniture large enough to possibly accommodate her. "Here, sit, rest." She collapsed onto it more than sat, letting out a long, shuddering sigh. The turquoise lines on her skin pulsed weakly. She carefully placed the egg beside her, positioning it so it was touching her thigh, her hand hovering protectively over it. Ren backed away, suddenly feeling like an intruder in his own home. "Right, water." He gestured towards the recycler unit. She watched him, those silver eyes narrowed slightly. He filled a bulb, hesitated, then approached her slowly. "Drink." He held it out. She eyed the bulb, then him, then slowly reached out. Her long, slender fingers brushed his as she took it. Again, that startling sensation, a brief warmth, a flicker of turquoise light on his knuckles, and a fleeting, dizzying sense of awareness. Not thoughts exactly, but a wave of sensation. Pain, exhaustion, fierce protectiveness towards the egg, and underlying it all, a deep, wary curiosity directed at him. He snatched his hand back, startled. "Okay, definitely weird." She ignored him, examining the water bulb before cautiously taking a sip. Her throat moved with a smooth, unfamiliar ripple. Setting the bulb down, she turned her attention back to the egg, running a hand over its glowing surface. The light brightened fractionally under her touch. Ren busied himself checking the dome seals and power levels, needing something normal to do. But he couldn't stop glancing back at her, at the alien curve of her limbs, the way the light played across her skin, the sheer otherness of her. And the egg. That constant, rhythmic pulse was starting to feel less like background noise and more like a conversation he wasn't privy to. He needed to patch her up. He rummaged through his medkit, old, standard-issue stuff, probably useless against whatever alien physiology she had. "Look your side, it's still bleeding." He held up a coagulant patch and a synth-skin bandage. "This might help, maybe." He approached cautiously again. She tensed, her hand hovering near the egg. The crystalline hissing started up again, low in her throat. "Easy," Ren said softly. "Just trying to help. Can't have you bleeding all over my couch, right?" He tried a weak smile. She tilted her head, the hissing softening slightly. The turquoise lines flared brighter for a moment, then settled. Slowly, tentatively, she shifted, angling her injured side towards him. Trust, or just necessity. He knelt beside the couch, trying to keep his movements slow and non-threatening. "Okay, this might sting." He peeled the backing off the coagulant patch. As he reached towards the gash, his fingers brushed the edge of her wrap-like clothing. The fabric felt strange, like woven metal fibers, cool and smooth. He pressed the patch against the wound. She inhaled sharply, her whole body going rigid. The lights on her skin flared intensely, washing the dome in turquoise. He felt another jolt, stronger this time, a flash of sharp pain, not his own, followed by a wave of something that felt like approval, relief. It shot through him, making his head swim. He quickly applied the synth skin bandage over it. There. Better. Her lights dimmed back to their normal soft glow. She looked down at the bandage, then up at him. Her expression was unreadable, but the tension in her shoulders seemed to ease slightly. She reached out, not towards the wound, but towards his face. He froze as her cool fingers brushed his cheek. More sparks, more light, and this time, a clearer sense of her curiosity mixed with something else, possessiveness. He pulled back instinctively. "Hey, personal space." She retracted her hand, her silver eyes blinking slowly. A low, rumbling sound came from her chest, almost like a chuckle, or maybe a purr. The egg beside her pulsed steadily, its light seeming to brighten whenever she focused on him. Trapped in a tiny dome with an injured, glowing alien warrior woman and her potentially galaxy-altering egg, his life had officially gone off the rails. Days blurred into a strange routine. Ren kept the hydro trays cycling, patched up the dome's perpetually leaky seals, and tried not to stare too obviously at his unexpected houseguest. Xyler, she'd finally communicated her name. a series of soft clicks and resonant hums that resolved into something like Xyler. After Wren butchered it a few times, spent most of her time on the couch, tending to the egg. She ate the nutrient paste he offered, drank the recycled water, and slowly her wound began to heal. The bandage stayed put at least. Her strength returned gradually, marked by the increasing intensity and stability of the turquoise lights patterning her skin. She moved more easily, sometimes packing the small confines of the dome with a fluid grace that was captivating and slightly intimidating. Communication remained a challenge. She seemed to understand basic intent, gestures, tone. She learned his name, Wren, drawn out with that strange resonance pretty quickly, but complex ideas were lost in translation. Instead, she relied on touch, a light brush of her fingers against his arm to get his attention, a firmer nudge when she wanted something for the egg, usually a specific temperature adjustment in the dome, or for him to move something blocking the ambient light sensor she seemed to favor. Each touch came with that spark, that jolt of shared sensation. It was less startling now, more familiar, and increasingly charged. Wren found himself anticipating it, bracing for the brief, intimate flash of her state warmth when the egg pulsed contentedly, a sharp spike of protectiveness if a ship passed overhead on the orbital scanners, a low thrum of curiosity when she watched him work. He started pushing back playfully. When she nudged him for the 5th time one cycle to adjust the nutrient feed to the hydrate rays near the egg, he nudged her back. Busy here, glowstick, patience. She blinked her silver eyes, tilted her head, and then nudged him again, harder, bumping his hip with hers. A ripple of amusement, bright and clear, flashed through the contact. He stumbled slightly, surprised by her strength. "Hey!" She made that low, rumbling sound again, the closest thing he'd heard to laughter, and the lights along her spine pulsed rhythmically. He found himself smiling despite his annoyance. "Fine, fine." He adjusted the feed. She rewarded him with a quick pat on the shoulder, cool fingers lingering just a second too long, sending a wave of warmth down his spine that had nothing to do with the dome's heating system. He noticed the subtle shifts in her markings more clearly now. When she was calm, tending the egg, the lines were soft, flowing turquoise. When she was alert, listening to the sounds outside the dome, they sharpened, becoming brighter, almost electric blue. And when she looked at him, especially when they touched, they sometimes shifted towards a deeper violet, pulsing with that disconcerting possessiveness. One evening he was trying to repair a faulty datapad, cursing under his breath. Xyler approached silently, her bare feet making no sound on the deck plating. She peered over his shoulder, her strange scent, ozone and spice, washing over him. He could feel the warmth radiating from her. "Something need?" she asked, her voice still hesitant with unfamiliar sounds. "Just this piece of junk," Wren muttered, tapping the unresponsive screen. "Needs a new power conduit, but I don't have the right filament." Xyler leaned closer, her finned forearm brushing his. Sparks danced between them. She reached out, her long fingers tracing the casing of the datapad. A faint turquoise glow emanated from her fingertips, sinking into the device. The screen flickered. Wren stared. "What are you?" The datapad suddenly whirred to life, the screen flaring brightly before settling into its normal display. Wren gaped at it, then at her. "How did you do that?" She merely tilted her head, the violet undertones in her markings deepening as she met his gaze. She tapped the datapad screen, then tapped his chest lightly, right over his heart. The implication was unnervingly clear. Energy, connection, power. And the look in her silver eyes held a challenge, a spark of something predatory and deeply interested. He swallowed hard, the small dome suddenly feeling far too small. The air crackled with unspoken tension, thick and heavy as the humid air before a desert storm. The egg beside the couch pulsed, a steady, knowing beat in the loaded silence. The playful nudges became lingering touches. The accidental brushes felt increasingly deliberate. Wren found himself constantly aware of Xyler's presence, a magnetic pull he fought against even as it drew him in. Catch her watching him, her silver eyes intense, the patterns on her skin shifting in ways he was beginning to understand meant focus, assessment, desire. It was unnerving and exhilarating. He tried to maintain distance, burying himself in repairs, scavenging runs near the dome, anything to avoid the charged atmosphere inside. But she wouldn't let him. She'd follow him to the airlock, watch him work on the hydrocoils, her silent presence a constant pressure. One cycle he was calibrating the atmospheric sensors on the dome's exterior, perched precariously on a maintenance ladder. The wind whipped dust around him, stinging his eyes. Suddenly Xyler was there below him, holding the ladder steady. She hadn't made a sound approaching. "Didn't hear you come out," he said, trying to sound casual, his heart hammering against his ribs. She just looked up at him, the wind catching the delicate fins along her arms, making them flutter. The turquoise lines on her skin were bright against the red dust. "Need safe," she rumbled, her resonant voice carrying easily over the wind. He tightened a coupling, trying to focus. "Yeah, well, falling off this thing wouldn't be safe." "Ren," she said, drawing his name out again. He looked down. She reached up, her cool fingers brushing against his boot. Even through the thick material he felt the jolt, the familiar spark. This time it carried a wave of possessiveness so strong it almost made him dizzy. It wasn't just curiosity anymore, it felt like staking a claim. He quickly climbed down the last few rungs, putting distance between them. "Okay, what was that?" Manded, backing towards the airlock. "Don't do that." Xyler followed, her movements fluid and purposeful. She stopped directly in front of him, blocking his path. She was close enough now that he could see the intricate detail of her scales, the way the light seemed to breathe beneath her skin. "Why?" she asked, tilting her head. The violet undertones pulsed softly. "Why not touch?" "Because," Ren sputtered, feeling cornered. "Because humans, we don't just touch people like that, it means something." "Means?" She echoed, reaching out again, slowly this time. Her fingers hovered inches from his chest. He could feel the energy radiating from her, a palpable warmth. "Good." Her hand landed flat against his sternum. The contact was electric. A flood of sensation poured through him, her calm confidence, her unwavering focus on him, and a deep, primal wanting that mirrored the unsettling pulse thrumming from the egg inside the dome. His breath hitched. He should push her away, tell her to stop. But he couldn't move. Her silver eyes held his, ancient and knowing. "Means bond," she murmured, the word unfamiliar on her tongue but the intent unmistakable. The violet light in her markings flared, swirling around the point of contact. He felt marked, claimed. "No," he managed, finding his voice, though it sounded strangled. "No, it doesn't, not for me." He finally pushed her hand away, stumbling back into the airlock cycle chamber. "Just stop." Xyler watched him, her expression unreadable, but the violet light didn't fade. It pulsed steadily, a silent insistence. She took a step towards the closing outer door, placing her palm flat against it, right where his back had been moments before. The air hissed as the chamber cycled. Ren leaned against the inner door, heart pounding, the ghost of her touch burning on his skin. The thrumming from the egg seemed louder now, echoing the frantic beat in his own chest. He was losing this battle. He wasn't just guarding an alien queen and her legacy anymore. He was falling for her, and that scared him more than any scavenger or skitterhawk ever could. The tension inside the dome became unbearable, a physical presence like static electricity before a lightning strike. The attack came suddenly, shattering the fragile truce of their forced proximity. It wasn't scavengers this time, not the usual opportunistic raiders. These were hunters. Sleek, black-clad figures dropping silently from a low-hovering stealth skimmer that blended almost perfectly with the twilight sky. Ren saw them on the perimeter monitors just seconds before the first plasma bolts hit the dome. "Down!" he yelled, shoving Xyler away from the viewport. She reacted instantly, snatching the egg and rolling behind the couch as the transparasteel crazed under the impact. Alarms blared, red emergency lights flashing, casting the cramped space in hellish relief. Ren grabbed his pulse pistol, adrenaline flooding his system. "They found you, Kresk," Xyler hissed, the sound venomous. Her turquoise markings flared electric blue, sharp and jagged. She cradled the egg, her body coiled like a predator ready to strike. Another blast hit the dome, closer to the airlock. The outer door buckled inward. "They want the egg," Ren shouted over the alarms. "Me," Xyler corrected, her silver eyes fixed on the damaged door. "Egg consequence." Ren didn't have time to parse that. Figures were slicing through the weakened metal. He fired off a wild shot, the energy bolt searing the air, forcing them back momentarily. "We need to move. Is there a back way out of this rust bucket? He knew there was. His habdome was cheap, basic. One way in, one way out. Xyler was already moving, though. Not towards the back, but towards the main console controlling the dome systems. Her fingers flew across the controls, activating protocols Ren didn't even know existed. The internal lights died, plunging them into near darkness, broken only by the red emergency strobes and the steady glow of the egg. Then, she slammed her palm onto a specific panel. A deep hum resonated through the deck plating, and the hydroponic trays lining one wall slid aside, revealing a hidden compartment Ren had never discovered. It wasn't an exit but a shielded alcove, barely large enough for 2 people and an egg. "In," she commanded, shoving him towards it. Ren stumbled inside, pulse pistol raised. Xyler followed, pulling the heavy panel shut just as the main airlock door burst open. They were plunged into absolute darkness, save for the soft, rhythmic glow of the egg clutched between them. The space was impossibly tight. Ren was pressed hard against Xyler, her cool skin radiating heat, her breath ghosting his cheek. He could feel the frantic thrumming of her heart, or whatever organ served that function, echoing the pounding in his own chest. Outside, he heard heavy boots on the deck, harsh commands in a guttural language. They were searching. The egg in Xyler's arms pulsed wildly, its light flaring erratically. Ren felt a strange pressure building in the tiny space, a tingling energy emanating from the egg, pushing outwards. Xyler made a low, guttural sound, pressing herself tighter against him, one hand clamped over his mouth, the other fiercely guarding the egg. He could feel the tension vibrating through her body, the controlled power held barely in check. Her scent, ozone, spice, and now something feral, dangerous, filled his senses. They waited, breath held, muscles screaming. Footsteps approached the hidden panel, stopped. Ren's blood ran cold. Then a sharp query in the alien tongue, a negative reply. The footsteps moved away. Minutes stretched into an eternity, filled only with the sound of their breathing, the thrum of the egg, and the dwindling sounds of the hunters searching, then eventually retreating. The skimmer's engines whined as it lifted off, fatting into the distance. Silence descended, thick and heavy. They remained pressed together in the dark, adrenaline slowly receding, leaving behind a different kind of tension. Ren became acutely aware of every point of contact, his chest against her side, his thigh pressed against hers, her hand still near his mouth, her finned arm brushing his neck. The egg between them pulsed with a steady, calming rhythm now, its gentle light illuminating their faces. Xyler slowly removed her hand from his mouth. Her silver eyes, luminous in the dim light, locked onto his. The electric blue of danger had faded from her markings, replaced by that deep, swirling violet. The air crackled. The shared fear, the adrenaline, the forced intimacy, it had stripped away the last of their defenses. He could feel the raw need radiating from her, mirrored by a confusing, overwhelming surge of protectiveness and desire in himself. She leaned closer, her forehead brushing his. He didn't pull away. He couldn't. The spark between them ignited, no longer fleeting but a steady, burning current. This wasn't accidental proximity anymore. This was a crucible forging something new, something dangerous and undeniable in the darkness. The panel slid open, revealing the wrecked interior of the dome, bathed in the eerie glow of the emergency lights and the steady pulse of the egg. The immediate danger had passed, but the air remained thick with unresolved energy. Ren and Xyler stumbled out of the cramped alcove, blinking in the relative brightness. They stood facing each other amidst the debris, the silence stretching, amplifying the frantic beat of his heart. Her violet markings pulsed, a silent question, a challenge. He saw the lingering fear in her eyes, overlaid with that fierce possessiveness and a vulnerability she rarely showed. He saw the slight tremor in her hands as she adjusted her grip on the egg. And in that moment, the fear, the responsibility, the sheer alienness of it all, faded behind an overwhelming urge to close the distance, to answer the question her entire being seemed to be asking. He reached out, his hand hovering near her cheek. She didn't flinch. Instead, she leaned into the anticipated touch, her silver eyes fluttering shut for a fraction of a second. His fingers brushed her cool skin. The familiar jolt arced between them, but this time it wasn't startling. It felt like connection, sharp and clear. A wave of her relief, her need, her focus entirely on him, washed over Ren, stealing his breath. He slid his hand around the back of her neck, feeling the strange, smooth texture of her skin, the delicate ridges of her spine beneath. She made a low, guttural sound deep in her throat, a resonant purr of approval, and tilted her head, giving him better access. The egg, held securely in the crook of her other arm, pulsed with a warm, insistent light, bathing them both in its glow. It felt like encouragement, blessing even. Ren leaned in, drawn by an invisible force, and captured her mouth with his. Her lips were cool at first, then warmed instantly under his, surprisingly soft. She responded with an eagerness that bordered on desperate, her free arm wrapping around his waist, pulling him tight against her. The kiss was clumsy at first, a collision of unfamiliar angles and textures, then quickly deepened into something raw and searching. It wasn't gentle, it was demanding, fueled by adrenaline and weeks of simmering tension. He tasted ozone and something sweet, exotic. Her hand tangled in his hair, holding him fast. He explored the curve of her jaw, the sleek line of her neck, his senses overwhelmed by the sheer alien intimacy of it. Her skin felt electric under his touch, patterns of light flaring beneath his fingertips. He could feel the thrumming energy that always surrounded her, now focused, intense, drawing him deeper. She broke the kiss, gasping, her silver eyes wide and luminous, pupils dilated, or the alien equivalent. Her chest rose and fell rapidly. "Ren," she breathed, the sound thick with emotion he couldn't quite decipher but felt echoed in his own gut. Need, possession, belonging. He didn't know the words in her language or even fully in his, but the meaning was starkly clear in the way she held him, the way her body trembled against his. He lowered his head again, kissing the line of her jaw, the place where her neck met her shoulder, breathing in her strange, intoxicating scent. She arched against him, a sharp hiss escaping her lips that was pure pleasure this time. Her tail coiled restlessly behind her, brushing against his leg. He fumbled with the fastenings of her strange wrap-like tunic, needing to feel more of her. The material parted under his clumsy fingers, revealing skin that shimmered, shifting from indigo to violet, patterned with pulsing light. He ran his hand over her side, tracing the elegant lines of her ribs, feeling the heat radiating from her. She shivered, her fins flaring slightly. She reciprocated, her cool hand sliding under his worn tunic, exploring the unfamiliar landscape of his human torso. Her touch was tentative at first, then grew bolder, mapping his muscles, the line of his ribs, sending shivers down his spine. The contrast between her cool skin and the heat she generated was dizzying. The egg pulsed steadily against her side, a warm, vibrant presence, seemingly anchoring the chaotic energy swirling between them. Its light cast flickering shadows on the walls, isolating them in a bubble of shared intensity. Ren pushed her gently backwards until her legs hit the edge of the battered couch. She sank onto it, pulling him down with her, never breaking eye contact, her silver gaze burning with an intensity that consumed him. This was madness, utter, complete madness. But as his lips found hers again, as her alien body molded against his human one, as the egg pulsed its silent, knowing rhythm beside them, it felt like the only sane thing in the universe. The aftermath was a tangle of limbs, scattered debris, and ragged breathing, illuminated by the soft, constant glow of the egg. Ren lay sprawled partially on the couch, partially on Xyler, his head resting on her shoulder, her cool skin a soothing balm against his overheated cheek. Her arm was draped possessively across his back, her fingers tracing idle patterns on his skin that sent faint sparks dancing across his nerve endings. The dome was quiet, the alarm silenced, the only sounds there mingled breaths and the low, resonant hum that seemed to emanate from Xyler herself when she was calm. He felt drained, overwhelmed, yet strangely centered. The connection forged between them wasn't just physical, it felt deeper, more fundamental, woven with the energy of the egg and the shared trauma of the attack. Xyler shifted slightly, running a hand through his hair. The gesture was surprisingly gentle. "And," she murmured, her voice soft, resonant. He grunted noncommittally, not ready to break the fragile peace. She persisted, nudging his head up with her chin until he looked at her. Her silver eyes were soft, the intense violet light faded back to a gentle turquoise. "Egg," she said, gesturing towards the glowing ovoid nestled beside them. "You feel," Ren frowned, concentrating. He could still feel the low, thrumming vibration, the steady pulse that had become a background constant in his life. But now, there was something else, a faint echo within himself, a resonance. "Yeah," he admitted slowly. "It's stronger, different." Xyler nodded, a serious expression on her alien features. "Bonded, not just touch." She struggled for the words, her brow furrowed. "Life spark, you touch egg, save me." She gestured between them, then placed her hand flat on the egg's warm surface. "Now link, you are Telrin." She spoke the alien word carefully, distinctly. It vibrated in the air. Ren pushed himself up slightly. "Telrin, what does that mean?" "Father Protector," she replied, the translation seemingly costing her effort. "Guardian, life-giver, adjacent." She tilted her head, searching his face. "My people the Cathar, we are few now, scattered, hunted." Her voice held a deep sadness, a weariness that resonated in the turquoise light dimming along her arms. "This egg, it is Queen Egg, future, hope." She looked down at the egg, then back at him, her gaze piercing. "When you saved it, shielded it, its life force, imprinted on you, as mine did." Ren stared at her, the implications crashing down on him with the force of a meteor strike. "Father Protector, guardian to an alien egg, to a whole species." "Wait, hold on," he stammered, pulling away slightly. I found you, helped you, that doesn't make me." He trailed off, unable to articulate the sheer absurdity. "I'm just a farmer, a scavenger, not royalty adjacent or whatever." Xyler reached out, gripping his arm firmly. Her touch sent a wave of insistence, of knowing through him. "Is not choice, Ren, is resonance, fact. The Kresk hunters, they feel it too. Why they came, they hunt the queen line, extinguish hope." She gestured towards the damaged dome. "They know link, you are target now, too." Ren felt cold, target, not just caught in the crossfire, but actively hunted because of some mystical alien connection he didn't understand and certainly hadn't asked for. He wanted his simple, lonely life back. He wanted freedom. But looking at Xyler, at the fierce determination in her eyes, the vulnerability beneath the regal bearing, and feeling the undeniable pull towards her, towards the pulsing life in the egg, he knew that life was gone forever. "So," he said slowly, the weight of it settling in his chest. "What happens now? We just wait for them to come back?" Xyler shook her head, the fins on her calves flaring slightly. "No, we prepare. Egg cycle nears completion, must hatch, needs sanctuary." She looked around the wrecked dome, then met his gaze again. "This place not safe, not right." She touched his chest, right over his heart where her touch had landed before. "You are Telrin, you help find." It wasn't a question. It was a statement of fact, a declaration of their intertwined destiny. He was trapped. Bound by honor, by attraction, by some inexplicable cosmic resonance to an alien queen, and the future of her race resting in a glowing egg. And the most terrifying part, a small, treacherous part of him didn't want to escape. Acceptance wasn't a conscious decision, more like erosion. The constant presence of Xyler, the steady pulse of the egg, the undeniable connection that sparked and flared between them, it wore down Ren's resistance, his fear, his ingrained desire for solitary freedom. He started watching Xyler differently, not just as an alien but as Xyler. He noticed the way she meticulously cleaned the egg's surface each cycle, humming a low, resonant tune. He saw the flicker of worry in her eyes when a sandstorm raged outside, muffling the sounds she strained to hear. He learned the subtle shifts in her glow that indicated contentment, anxiety, or amusement. He started helping proactively, not just reacting to her nudges. He rigged a makeshift incubator using salvaged heating elements and reflective plating, trying to maintain the precise temperature she indicated the egg needed. He learned to recognize the faint change in the egg's internal light patterns that signaled its developmental stages, guided by Xyler's patient touches and resonant hums that somehow conveyed complex information directly into his understanding. They worked together to repair the dome, salvaging what they could, reinforcing the damaged sections. The shared labor built a different kind of intimacy, a quiet camaraderie. Their banter softened. His sarcasm lost some of its bite, replaced by a dry wit that sometimes even made her produce that low, rumbling chuckle. Her touches became less about claiming, more about sharing. A brush of fingers as they passed tools, a hand resting briefly on his shoulder as they surveyed their repairs. Each touch still carried the spark, the shared awareness, but now it felt less like an invasion and more like a conversation. One evening, while checking the incubator readings, Ren felt a sudden jolt from the egg stronger than usual, accompanied by a distinct ripple across its surface. He glanced at Xyler, who was instantly alert, her body tense, her lights sharpening to electric blue. "What was that?" Ren asked. Xyler approached the incubator slowly, placing her palm flat against the egg. She closed her eyes, concentrating. The turquoise lines on her skin pulsed in time with the egg's light. After a long moment, she opened her eyes, a mixture of excitement and apprehension in their silver depths. "Quickening," she breathed. "It feels presence, recognizes Telrin." She looked at him, her gaze intense. "Soon, hatching soon." The weight of responsibility settled on Ren again, heavier this time. Soon. He wasn't ready. How could he be? "Sanctuary," Xyler stated, her voice firm. "We cannot stay. Kresk will return, stronger." Ren nodded slowly. He knew she was right. Small, isolated farm was compromised, vulnerable. "Where?" he asked. "Where can we go?" Xyler tilted her head, accessing memories or knowledge Ren couldn't fathom. "Ancient place, place of first queens, hidden, shielded on this world but far." She projected a faint, shimmering image into the air between them, a topographical map showing jagged mountains far to the north, a region Ren knew only as treacherous and largely unexplored. Cave system, deep, geothermal energy, warmth, safety. Getting there wouldn't be easy. His old ground car was barely functional and the terrain was brutal, and they'd be exposed during the journey. "It's dangerous," Ren said, stating the obvious. "Kresk hunt," Xyler countered simply, "staying more dangerous." She stepped closer, placing her hand on his arm. The connection flared, determination, trust, and a plea for protection that resonated deep within him. "You are Telrin, you guide, you protect." He looked from her earnest face to the pulsing egg in the incubator. The quickening. A new life dependent on them, dependent on him. He sighed, running a hand through his hair. The farmer, the scavenger, the loner was gone. In his place stood someone else. Someone bound, someone needed. "Okay," he said, the word feeling momentous. "Okay, Xyler, we go, pack light, we leave at first light." Her answering smile wasn't human, but the relief and gratitude that flooded through their connection were universal, warming him more effectively than the dome's struggling heaters ever could. The journey north was grueling. Ren pushed his battered ground car, the dust devil, harder than it had ever been pushed, coaxing it over rocky outcrops, through deep sand drifts and across cracked salt flats shimmering under the binary suns. Xyler sat beside him, cradling the egg, now wrapped in insulating fabrics, her body tense, her silver eyes constantly scanning the horizon. The egg's quickening had intensified. Ren could feel its restless energy even from the driver's seat, a low, insistent thrumming that vibrated through the car's chassis. They spoke little, conserving energy, communicating mostly through shared glances and the subtle shifts in the empathic connection between them. Ren learned to read the tightening of her grip on the egg as concern, the slight flaring of her fins as alertness. She, in turn, seemed to anticipate his needs, offering him water before he felt thirsty, pointing out treacherous terrain shifts before his sensors picked them up. They traveled mostly at night, using the cover of darkness and the planet's twin moons to navigate. During the brief, scorching days, they sheltered in the shadow of rock formations or inside shallow caves, the dust devil camouflaged under thermal netting. In those quiet moments, huddled together against the vast indifference of the landscape, their bond deepened. Ren found himself telling her about Earth, about rain and oceans, concepts utterly alien to her desert-adapted senses. She listened intently, her lights pulsing softly, occasionally touching his arm as if to draw the images directly from his mind. She, in turn, shared fragments of Cathar history, not through words but through shared feelings, flashes of imagery, towering crystalline cities, nebula-filled skis, the sorrow of a people scattered, the fierce loyalty of the Queen's protectors, the sacred duty tied to the egg. One evening, camped in a narrow canyon, they detected a faint energy signature approaching Kresk scouts. Ren killed the car's power, plunging them into silence. Xyler pressed the egg against his chest, her body shielding both of them, her markings shifting to a deep, light-absorbing black that made her almost invisible in the shadows. Ren held his breath, pulse pistol ready, feeling the frantic pulse of the egg against his ribs. He felt Xyler's fear, but beneath it, a cold, deadly resolve. The Kresk patrol passed by overhead, their sensors apparently fooled by the canyon's interference and Xyler's dampening field. When the energy signature faded, they sagged against each other in relief. Xyler kept the egg pressed against him for a long moment, her forehead resting against his shoulder. He could feel the frantic beat of her heart slowly calming, syncing with his own. "Close," he whispered. She nodded, pulling back slightly. Sanctuary needed now. The egg pulsed sharply, a distinct ripple visible even through the wrappings. Xyler gasped, her eyes widening. "It comes," she breathed, a note of awe and urgency in her voice. The hatching begins. Ren's gut clenched. Now here, in the middle of nowhere with hunters potentially nearby, we're still 2 cycles from the mountains. Must find cave, shelter, warmth, Xyler insisted, already scanning the canyon walls, her gaze sharp and focused. The egg pulsed again, harder this time, a faint cracking sound echoing in the sudden silence. Panic warred with the ingrained sense of responsibility, the Telrin imperative, as he'd started thinking of it. He took a deep breath, pushing the panic down. Okay, help me search." They moved quickly, Ren using the Dust Devil's limited scanners, Xyler relying on her own senses, attuned to the planet's geothermal whispers. Against all odds, tucked behind a rockfall Ren would have driven right past, they found it a narrow opening, barely visible, leading into darkness. Warm, humid air wafted out, carrying the scent of minerals and deep earth. "Here," Xyler declared, conviction radiating from her. She squeezed Ren's arm, her touch conveying trust and a desperate hope. "We are ready." Ren peered into the darkness, then back at the pulsing, cracking egg in Xyler's arms. Ready or not, it was happening. He was about to become a father protector for real this time. He gripped his pulse pistol, checked its charge, and followed his queen into the unknown. The cave system was a labyrinth, but Xyler navigated it with an instinct Ren couldn't fathom, leading them deeper into the planet's warm embrace. The air grew thick, humid, smelling of sulfur and strange, subterranean minerals. Faint geothermal light emanated from phosphorescent veins in the rock, casting eerie, shifting shadows. The egg's pulsing grew more insistent, the cracking sounds more frequent. Xyler moved with urgent grace, finding a small, defensible chamber warmed by a natural steam vent. She carefully laid the egg on a bed of insulating fabric Ren had salvaged from the Dust Devil, her movements precise, reverent. Ren stood guard at the chamber entrance, pulse pistol raised, every sense straining, listening for any hint of pursuit. The silence of the deep earth was profound, broken only by the hissing steam, the cracking egg, and Xyler's low, resonant humming, a sound both soothing and intensely focused. Hours passed. Xyler knelt beside the egg, hands hovering over its surface, her turquoise light flowing into it, mirroring its rapid pulses. Ren felt the energy building, a palpable pressure in the chamber, resonating from the egg through Xyler and into him. It was a strange feedback loop, connecting the 3 of them in an invisible, powerful circuit. Then, with a final, sharp crack, a large piece of the eggshell broke away. Xyler gasped, leaning closer. Ren abandoned his post, drawn irresistibly towards the miracle unfolding. Inside the fractured shell, something moved. Slowly, cautiously, a small, slender creature emerged, slick with amniotic fluid, its skin a pale, translucent version of Xyler's indigo, marked with faint, nascent turquoise lines. It had large, dark eyes that blinked slowly, adjusting to the dim light. It possessed delicate fins along its limbs and a tiny, twitching tail. It was unmistakably Cathar. The hatchling let out a soft, clicking cry and immediately turned its head, not towards Xyler but towards Ren, its dark eyes fixed on him with unnerving intelligence. Ren froze, mesmerized. Xyler made a soft sound of wonder. "Telrin," she whispered. The hatchling pushed itself weakly out of the remaining shell fragments and crawled with surprising speed directly towards Ren. It stopped at his boots, looked up, and made the clicking sound again, nudging his leg. Ren slowly knelt, his heart pounding. He hesitantly reached out a hand. The hatchling didn't recoil. Instead, it leaned into his touch, nuzzling his fingers, its skin surprisingly warm. A jolt, similar to Xyler's touch but gentler, purer, shot up his arm, a feeling of instant recognition, acceptance, imprinting. This tiny creature knew him, knew his role. Ren felt a wave of emotion so fierce it choked him, protectiveness, awe, terror, and an unexpected surge of paternal love. He scooped the hatchling carefully into his hands. It curled against his palm, surprisingly light, radiating warmth and that same steady Cathar pulse. He looked up at Xyler. Her face was luminous, tears or the Cathar equivalent shimmering in her silver eyes. The relief and joy radiating from her were overwhelming. "Our future," she breathed, reaching out to gently stroke the hatchling's head with one finger. At that moment, a harsh scraping sound echoed from the tunnel entrance. Ren and Xyler snapped alert. Kresk. They'd found them. Ren carefully handed the fragile hatchling to Xyler, his hand automatically going to his pistol. "Protect the little one," he murmured, his voice tight. Xyler nodded, clutching the hatchling protectively, her own markings flaring battle-ready blue. She retreated deeper into the chamber's shadows. Ren turned to face the entrance, planting his feet, pistol held steady. The Telran instinct surged, fierce and unyielding. Let them come. They wouldn't touch his family. Figures emerged from the tunnel, 2 Kresk hunters, clad in black armor, energy rifles raised. They scanned the chamber, their helmeted faces impassive. Ren didn't hesitate. He fired. The pulse bolt hit the lead Kresk square in the chest, sending him staggering back. The second hunter returned fire, plasma bolts searing the rock near Ren's head. He dived behind a cluster of crystals as Xyler erupted from the shadows. She moved like lightning, a blur of indigo and turquoise fury. Her fins became sharp weapons, her tail a whip. She disarmed the second hunter with blinding speed, her resonant battle cry echoing off the cave walls, a terrifying primal sound. Ren scrambled up, firing again, keeping the first hunter pinned down. Working together seamlessly, anticipating each other's moves without a word, they subdued the hunters quickly, efficiently. Ren bound them securely with synth cord. When the fight was over, silence returned, broken only by their panting breaths and the soft clicks of the hatchling in Xyler's arms. Ren looked at Xyler, at the fierce warrior queen who had fought beside him, then at the tiny life she held. He walked towards her, holstering his pistol. He gently touched the hatchling's cheek. It clicked softly, nuzzling his finger again. He looked into Xyler's silver eyes, seeing his own exhaustion, relief, and burgeoning hope reflected there. "Some farmer," he murmured, a tired smile touching his lips. Xyler leaned her forehead against his, a gesture of profound intimacy and shared victory. The warmth, the connection, the steady pulse of the new life held between them, it filled the quiet chamber. This wasn't the life Ren had planned. It was dangerous, uncertain, impossibly strange. But as he stood there, bound to an alien queen and the future of her race, feeling the weight of the tiny hatchling's trust, he knew with absolute certainty that he wouldn't trade it for anything. This was home. This was his future. Telran, father protector. He was finally ready to claim the title.